There are moments in history where the curtain gets pulled back just slightly, and what you see behind it changes the way you understand everything. Most of the time, those moments fade. The news cycle moves on. People get distracted, life continues, but every once in a while, something is so large, so deeply embedded in the structures of power, that it refuses to disappear, no matter how many people want it to. The Jeffrey Epstein case is one of those moments, and what's become clear over the years, through leaked documents, court filings, investigative journalism, and the slow, grinding release of names and details, is that this story was never really about one man. It was about a network, a system, a world that existed in plain sight, protected by wealth, silence, and the quiet cooperation of institutions that were supposed to stop exactly this kind of thing from happening. So today, we're going to walk through what we actually know, not the conspiracy theories, not the speculation, the documented, verified, court-recorded truths that are terrifying enough on their own. Before we dive in, if you want more stories like this, hit subscribe and leave a like. Now let's get into it. Part 1. Who was Jeffrey Epstein? Jeffrey Epstein was a financier. That's the word most often used to describe him. But what that word obscures is the fact that almost nobody could ever fully explain where his money came from or how his business actually worked. He claimed to only work with clients worth over $1 billion. He had an Upper East Side mansion that was reportedly the largest private residence in New York City. He had a private island in the U.S. Virgin Islands, a place that locals called Pedophile Island for years before anyone in power paid serious attention. He had properties in New Mexico, Paris, and Florida. He had a private jet that became so central to this story it was given a name, the Lolita Express. He moved through elite social circles with astonishing ease. He was photographed with presidents, princes, and billionaires. He sat on philanthropic boards. He donated to scientific research. Harvard accepted his money. MIT accepted his money. Powerful men smiled next to him at galas and fundraisers and private dinners. And for decades, he was at the center of a deeply disturbing criminal operation. Dozens of victims are documented in court records, with prosecutors and civil suits, suggesting the true number may have been far greater. Many of them were young women and teenagers, recruited from vulnerable and disadvantaged backgrounds. According to court filings and multiple civil accusations, they were funneled into a world of exploitation by Epstein, and according to those same accusations, by others in his circle. Part 2. The first arrest in the deal that shocked the world. In 2005, Palm Beach police began receiving complaints about Epstein sexually abusing teenage girls. Investigators built a case with evidence involving dozens of victims, enough for federal charges that could have meant life in prison. Instead, in 2008, Epstein pleaded guilty to just 2 state charges of soliciting prostitution, serving only 13 months in county jail with generous work release privileges. The federal investigation was dropped, his co-conspirators received immunity, and victims were never informed of the deal, a violation a federal judge later confirmed. The prosecutor who negotiated this arrangement was Alexander Acosta, who later claimed he was told Epstein belonged to intelligence and to leave it alone. That statement has never been explained or officially investigated, and remains one of the most troubling unanswered questions at the heart of the entire case. Part 3. Ghislaine Maxwell and the Machine. No conversation about Jeffrey Epstein is complete without Ghislaine Maxwell, the British socialite and daughter of the late media mogul, Robert Maxwell. She was Epstein's closest associate, his companion, and according to prosecutors and victims, the operational heart of his trafficking network. It was Maxwell who allegedly recruited girls. It was Maxwell who trained them. It was Maxwell who maintained the relationships, managed the properties, and kept the whole operation running. Victims described her as the person who normalized the abuse, who explained that what was happening was normal, that wealthy men had these kinds of arrangements, that the girls were lucky to be involved. In 2021, Maxwell was convicted on 5 counts of sex trafficking and related crimes. She was sentenced to 20 years in prison. She has maintained throughout her legal proceedings that she was a scapegoat, that more powerful people were responsible, that she was being punished for crimes that others committed. She has named no names. She has disclosed nothing. The immunity deal she was reportedly offered in exchange for cooperation. Cooperation that would presumably mean identifying the men who abused these girls, never materialized into any visible prosecutions. The girls were trafficked. The woman who trafficked them is in prison, and the men they were trafficked to remain, with very few exceptions, entirely untouched by the legal system. Part 4. The documents and the names beginning in 2024. A series of court documents were unsealed in connection with a civil lawsuit brought by one of Epstein's victims, Virginia Giuffre, against Ghislaine Maxwell. These documents contain depositions, witness statements, and lists of names, individuals who Giuffre and others alleged had been involved in or aware of Epstein's operation. The release of these documents was treated as a major revelation, and in some ways it was. Names appeared that confirmed what many had long suspected, that the reach of Epstein's network extended into some of the most recognizable institutions and social circles on the planet. Politicians, academics, royals, financiers, lawyers, people who had built entire careers on public trust. But here's the terrifying truth that gets lost in the excitement over names. The vast majority of individuals named in civil depositions have not faced criminal charges. Being named in a deposition is not the same as being convicted of a crime, but it does raise questions. It raises serious, urgent questions about how a trafficking operation of this scale, connected to this many powerful people, operated for this many decades, and resulted in so few criminal consequences for anyone beyond Epstein himself, who died in his jail cell in August 2019, and Maxwell. Part 5. The death that changed everything. Jeffrey Epstein was found dead in his cell on August 10, 2019, while awaiting trial on federal sex trafficking charges. The medical examiner ruled it a suicide by hanging, but an independent pathologist hired by his brother concluded the neck injuries were more consistent with homicide. The circumstances raised serious questions. Epstein had been taken off suicide watch. The guards on duty fell asleep and falsified their logs. Security cameras malfunctioned, and he was left in a cell alone against protocol. The Justice Department investigated, and the guards were charged with falsifying records, but no one was charged in connection with his death, and the suicide ruling stands. With Epstein gone, a key witness in a case involving hundreds of victims and potentially dozens of powerful figures will never testify. And whatever he knew died with him. Here's what makes the Epstein case truly terrifying. It was never just about one monster. It's about how systems protect the powerful, how wealth buys silence, how institutions bend for the people who fund them, how victims can come forward again and again and still be dismissed, discredited, and defeated in courtrooms by better lawyers and deeper pockets. Hundreds of girls were abused. Epstein served 13 months. Maxwell is in prison but has named no one. And the men who used that network, most of them, are still out there, still wealthy, still untouchable, and apparently still free. Maybe they're right, maybe they won't be, but the files are still out there. The victims are still speaking. The journalists are still digging. And the truth, however slowly, however painfully, has a way of becoming impossible to contain. The Epstein case isn't over, not even close. If this video opened your eyes or gave you something to think about, please hit the like button. It genuinely helps this channel reach more people. And if you haven't already, subscribe and turn on notifications so you never miss when we cover stories like this. The truth deserves an audience. See you in the next one.